He's the reason we're here today. Please welcome for the first time ever at Comic-Con, give it up for the one, the only, George Lucas! Welcome to our audience. Welcome to our panel. Sorry, what does 50 Years of Love sound like? Silence. Excellent, excellent. What does 50 Years of Love sound like? Just checking, just wanted to make sure George has that on the clip if he needs it. All right, I feel so lucky somebody pitched me to be sitting here, besides being a sci-fi nerd myself. I'm just so happy to be here to support two of my closest friends, George and his wife, Melody. This is such a historic moment, not just because it's George's first time at Comic-Con, not just because he brought the big guns with him, but because this is the very first time George has done a personal show and tell of the new museum, the new Lucas Museum of Narrative Art. This place, it is incredible. It's chock full of pieces that George has been collecting over 50 years. I'm talking original character sketches, original matte paintings, illustrations. So watch very closely because this little video you're about to see for the very first time, we're revealing some of those pieces that'll be on display. So, with no further ado, it is my great pleasure to give to you the first sneak peek.
Well, I've been collecting art since I was in college, and back when I was in college, which is sort of near the Stone Age, the idea is that I couldn't really afford real art. I love all art, no matter what it is. But I could afford comic art because in those days it was underground, and it was you sort of had to know people to find out whether it was a sort of a auction that was sent out on a mimeograph sheet and had some prices and names of art. And so I've been sort of collecting narrative art ever since then, because I could then, in college, I could get an alley-oop for $30. And because the comics were expensive, but the original art wasn't that expensive because it was harder to come by.
But you've managed to collect upwards of 40,000 pieces of art.
Yeah, I've been doing this for 50 years now. And then it occurred to me that what am I going to do with it all? Because I refuse to sell it. You know, I'm not one of the typical high art collectors who buys and then you come back 5 years later and you say, what happened to that painting you bought? That was so beautiful. Well, I sold it for $10 million. I made a lot of money on it. I said, I could never do that. It just is not what I think art is. I think it's more about a connection, an emotional connection with the work, not how much it cost or what celebrity did it or whatever. It's more a personal thing. And I don't think it's anything that anybody else can tell you. That's art. That's not art. It doesn't work that way. If you have an emotional connection, then it's art. If you don't, then just move on to the next painting. And it's the idea that people can tell you what art is and talk about it. I've discovered just from my experience of making movies and things that, other people's opinions don't mean much. The only thing that really means something is what you do and what you feel about it. And then if you see that other people react to it in a very emotional way, then you say, well, I did my job, that was good. But when people come who say they're experts and they say, oh, that's not art, that's not this, that's tough. And I've worked with hundreds of illustrators in my life, and they're all brilliant, they're all great, but they don't get recognized for anything. So this is sort of a temple to the people's art.
Temple to the people's art. Guillermo, you have some feelings about narrative art as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the duty of art is twofold, is to hint at a mystery and provide eloquence and emotion. And I think that when you have those two things and you realize that there is, once photography enters the picture, a lot of the art that is figurative starts to be frowned upon a lot more historically. And yet you realize that it is an art that captures a moment and an emotion for many, many people, that is always able to express things that are not just propaganda once it's liberated from church and state. And particularly many of the pieces we have that celebrate freedom or anarchy, I mean, Crazy Cat, certainly. Comics were the first one to punch gnats.
The idea that stories, mythology, any kind of story that is written to affect people and to build community is extremely important to society and creating societies and creating community. Art illustrates that story. And that's the right hand of building a community, is you need the art to make it seem real. Even, back in the whether it's the Renaissance or the Stone Age, you'll always have a story that people believe, it's mythology, it's not really true, but people believe it, and it binds them together with a common belief system. That common belief system is what is really important. And what we're doing here with the museum is to try to make people aware of the mythology that we live by, and at the same time, let them have an emotional experience looking at art that does tell the modern mythology. And as Doug pointed out, it's more of an exact science than people think it is. And it's a way, the art part of it, is a way of making it really accessible to people and make it so they believe it.
I've heard you speak to that in our conversations a lot lately, and Guillermo, you just said the E word, and George said the E word. Y'all probably like, what the hell is the E word?
I also use the F word. I'm alphabetical.
Say as many F words as you want. But the connection that I always hear, that I've constantly heard in just our various conversations, is emotion.
Yes.
Thanksgiving one that you have, and I thought that was a lovely story.
Well, again, one of the things that we deal with is the history of illustration, because this really is about illustration and about the mythology that creates the stories and the orators who, like in Greece, were highly respected above everybody because the stories were so important. These are the things that we believe in. Some people believe in science, but science is an opinion. It's not real any more than stories are real. But the idea of the common mythology that we believe in today, like love and community, and all of it, we've got like 33, 40 different galleries, and those galleries all are illustrations of a particular mythology that we live with today. Whether it's love, whether it's work, these are all not real, but it's an idea that gives us a common belief system. And in a common belief system, you can't build anything. You can't build pyramids, you can't build palaces, you can't build airplanes, you can't do anything by yourself. You have to have people you can do it with. And one of the issues, ultimately, one is family, is that I believe, and I think most people believe, that most families are dysfunctional. You always have somebody in there who, okay, we'll kind of live with them a little bit, or her. But the thing about the Rockwell painting that she's talking about is that it's a group of paintings are called the Four Freedoms. One of them is the freedom from want. And what it is a painting of mom bringing in a turkey, and everybody's sitting around the table, all smiles and looking and everything. The idea that Uncle Jim is drunk over in the corner, or Sally and Billy are going to get divorced because they're having a huge argument, all that is not mentioned. But what it does say is the modern mythology is not that the Indians fed the pilgrims and saved them from starvation, because that would have gone away a long time ago. What it's really about is family. And people go to Thanksgiving and inevitably say, oh God, I don't want to do this again. It's going to be fights, it's going to be this, and I have to deal with my dad, I have to do, it's all kind of, oh, well, I guess I've got to. Well, you've got to, because that painting tells you that family is important. It's part of what we need to keep society together, even if it's tough. And that's, a lot of the art centers around those ideas of what we believe in and how important that is to us to have a community and to be able to build off of a common belief. And that's especially together today because of the fact that the world is becoming a smaller place. There are a lot of different common beliefs out there. It used to be easy because they were far away and it was hard to get to interact with that. But now we're experiencing, in a lot of ways, the fact that there's a lot of different beliefs and there's a lot that aren't common. And the society cannot exist without a common belief system. And that's where illustration is vital to show you what that means in everyday life.
Yeah. Around my way, they call that dropping knowledge. That's amazing. I love the way you speak about it, because
When I went to building cars and racing cars and almost got killed, decided that probably wasn't a good idea either. But then I went, and I didn't do that well in high school. So I decided, well, as I was in the hospital and recuperating from a car accident, I said, well, maybe I'll just go to junior college, and because this was during the Vietnam War, and there was a certain advantage to going to the college. So I went to college, and I liked social science. It was always very important to me. And so I decided I'd just take a lot of social science classes because it really was something I was interested in. And I got really hooked on anthropology and fell under the sway of he was actually more of an English teacher, but at the same time he was really a mythologist and somebody who really understood mythology, which I really was extremely interested in, and which really comes from a time when I was, I don't know, about 5 or 6 years old, and my mom would put me to bed, and I asked her a question, and I said, "Mom, if there's only one God, why are there so many different religions?" And she really couldn't answer that. But I spent the rest of my life trying to answer that. And I come to the conclusion that I believe in God, but I have no idea what God is. And I don't think anybody does, because that's the thing where a very, very human nature is that when you're born, the baseline is fear. And as you go through life, you're curious about things, but you're especially curious about things you don't understand, and therefore that's a threat to you. And as a result, you make up stories to make it feel good. Well, you know, it goes dark periodically. Why does it? What happens if the sun doesn't? I mean, it doesn't get day. It's just night. What happens if, and back in the Greek times, they said, well, you got Apollo, he's a god, and he has a chariot, it's on fire, and when it goes over, flies over, it's all daytime.
Yeah.
At night, it's dark. Oh, I feel better now. And it's true. It's stories that make you feel connected to other people, but it also gets rid of some of the problems you have about the fact that you have to know everything. And of course, one of the real problems we have is humans think they know everything, even though they don't know anything. They're very, if you take the universe, we know so little about what's going on that it's just, we're like ants. We have no knowledge whatsoever. We just think we do. And that's one thing that this kind of art will celebrate in a way, because we have science fiction. Science fiction is a myth. We have made it real, but we've made it real because of science fiction books and art. And so that makes people say, oh, well, we could go to the moon, and once that idea is implanted, then we sort of believe we can do it. But the real problem is, I say, we think, well, we can go to the moon, we can go anywhere. No, I don't think so. Everything is in elements that are so huge, so vast, so impossible to understand for a human being, that you can't depend on what we know, and you can be inspired by what we think we know. But in the end,
Guillermo, you look like you want to get in there. What do you think?
Oh, I was no. I think the shape of the museum for me, it is flow, and what is beautiful is that George is a collector.
Guillermo del Toro. And I want to congratulate Doug for having a museum made just for him, the illustrators, courtesy of the men to his right and many, many more, including Melody Hobson. So thank you so much for having us today. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.